This episode of Church Advance is brought to you by ServeHQ.Church. You know, Brian and I have worked and talked with many pastors over the years, and one of the common biggest frustrations that they're experiencing is getting volunteers prepared and feeling that frustration of them being unsure with what to do. They'll spend hours each week trying to train new people, but there's always a lack of consistency, and it winds up burning many leaders out. Well, that's where Serve HQ can really help. With easy online training, built-in accountability, and automated reminders, your team will now be better trained, more confident, and more engaged without you having to do any of the heavy lifting. If you've ever struggled to get your volunteers trained and ready, check out Serve HQ today at www.servehq.church. That's www.servehq.church. Now, let's get on to this episode of Church Advance.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Church Advance podcast. It is springtime. In fact, by the time you hear this, we have sprung forward. Man, I don't know about you, but that is a tough weekend. It's my wife's least favorite Sunday of the year is Spring Forward Sunday. It was March 9th this year.
Yeah, it's my least favorite Sunday, but in terms of the moment, but I love the results of it. I love longer days, and not having to worry about at least here. So where I'm at, I am on what is it, the eastern edge of the central time zone. So I kid you not, in the dark of winter, sun sets at 4 o'clock.
Wow.
And so I'm over that. I love to get, some extra daylight out of it. But
Yep.
yeah, the actual spring forward Sunday, you losing an hour of sleep, that's no fun.
I would just say, man, just go to bed early. I mean, it's just not.
Yeah, well, hey,
Try.
that works.
I mean,
Yeah.
just go. It's yeah. Hopefully, it didn't injure. Hopefully, it doesn't injure world. My wife she likes her sleep. She likes to get
Hmm.
her time in, and so that she just gets bummed about that. And then it kind of messes with the kids too. If you got kids, it can be
Yeah.
mess with them a little bit. But
Yeah.
I get it. So, man, here we go. Springtime, is a good sowing time in the Lord's work. There's a lot of exciting things going on. We're going to talk a little bit just about approaching spring and particularly Easter. It's coming
Hmm.
up. Easter's messed up in my book this year, man. Wow, it's April 20th.
Yeah, it's a very late one this year.
It's either I think it's the 20th. That's
Brian, do you know how Easter is determined? Have we ever talked about this?
no. I
Okay,
mean,
so Easter,
go ahead. You tell me.
it'll take me a minute to recall it. I believe it is the first Sunday after the first full moon of springtime. That's how it's determined.
Wow. I
If
mean,
some
guys,
fact check me on that, I might be wrong, but it's something like that. It's incredibly confusing.
I don't know why we just can't say third Sunday of March.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think I'd be more for like first Sunday in April. That'd be
Yeah.
my vote. First
Yeah.
Sunday in April, maybe second Sunday. Give you a little time to actually warm up in the spring. But yeah, this
Man, if
it
that's
was it was literally in March last year, if I remember right.
it
It was
was.
March
So this is like
31st.
it's like a yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
almost,
a
yeah.
month
It's
later
like
almost.
it's like a 21-day swing here. Anyways,
But
but
hey,
it's coming.
as it may, here's what we know. It doesn't matter if it's in April or December or January. What matters is it is likely the single greatest op of the year
Yep.
to get people into church. So I want to talk a
Yep.
little bit about approaches to the weekend, what you might be willing and able to do to encourage people to come. Also, a little bit about the day and weekend itself and what we're doing and what you might want to consider doing. I mean, at this point, you might be a little late in your planning for what you're going to do this year, but it might be something you can tuck away for next year. So, in terms of just getting the word out, now I'm in a
Hmm.
unique spot. Luke, you've been here at the church several times. It is crazy for us what putting a banner sign out at the road does.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's true of everybody, but we have 50,000 cars that drive by our church every day,
Yep.
and we get tons of visitors at church just from
Yep.
drive-by. So when we put out trunk or treat or we put out children's Easter egg hunt, man, I mean, we just load up the parking lot. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
not fun. Now, again, you're
If
in a
you're
rural setting, that may not work, but
Yeah, so Brian, like you're talking, yeah, you're in a situation where you have, a busy street, busy road, highway, and if you're a church and you're not taking advantage of that, then you're missing a big opportunity. Like you said, 50,000 cars, that's a lot. That's a free exposure essentially. But don't cheap out on your sign. Don't go buy a little, 2 by 3 foot yard sign. People won't even notice that if they're flying by at 60 miles an hour. Get yourself a good size. I recommend, honestly, something that's maybe 6 to 8 foot wide, 3 to 5 feet high, something that's big, bold. Don't put a lot of text on it. Just put your service times, maybe your website, and that's it. You will see a lot of, like I said, a lot of drive-by exposure from that. So yeah, that's
I
a
think we do a
great
four
way.
by eight. I'm pretty sure a 4x8
Yeah,
sign
that's a
we
great
use.
size.
And we do it
Yeah.
both sided. We do it
Yep.
double sided,
Yep.
and we actually put a permanent. I don't know what you'd call them, but where you stick the stakes in, there's like a permanent receiver in the ground
Yeah. There you
because
go.
we don't use it all the time. But when we come up on a big event, and man, I've been shocked, dude. Trunk or treat, I'm not exaggerating. We do no advertising. We don't run a social ad. We don't do a Google ad. We don't do anything. And we have 5,000 people come to trunk or
Yeah.
treat just
Wow.
from a. And again,
Yeah.
I know that's not for everybody, but I would just say find yourself, if you don't have a good design person that can make one that looks good, use somebody like Luke or somebody else that you know, whatever, and get yourself something that looks sharp and will be catchy and get it out there in the yard. There's no reason to not do it. Like I said, it's free advertising. Luke, we've done this before. I don't know what you think about this, and maybe you could talk a little bit about this. But I also know that twice we have used some sort of online ad, either a
Hmm.
social ad or a Google ad. I think it's been predominantly social.
Yeah.
Give us thoughts on how does that is that good for an event like Easter, and does it get sucked up in the noise of all the other places that are doing stuff like that at Easter?
Yeah, when it comes to using social media or maybe a Google ad or something, I always remind people you are at the mercy of who I always call the almighty algorithm, which is ever changing and unpredictable. I don't there. Let me just I'll go on a small soapbox here, Brian, because I want to save churches out their money. There are people out there who claim they are experts when it comes to maybe ad placement and things. Nobody's an expert because it's always changing. The only experts are the people programming those algorithms at Google and Meta and these platforms. So don't let somebody come in and scam you and get you to pay them thousands of dollars to manage your ads. That will be you will very unlikely see the return on investment that you're expecting. That said, as far as what is the best approach, again, it's always changing, but what I've seen lately is it actually is better for you to run a consistent social media paid social media ad campaign that is essentially year round than it is to maybe dump hundreds or thousands of dollars into ads for one particular event. Now, that said, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be tweaking that ad, maybe, every month or two to maybe reflect the time of year. So as you're coming into Easter, you would maybe put something obviously about your Easter, offerings, your service times, egg hunts, or whatever you might have. But I would say because I've seen churches before, they're like, yeah, we'll just go dump, we'll run a $2,500 Facebook ad campaign 2 weeks out from Easter. Well, first of all, it's shocking. Meta many times won't even run your campaign to the full budget that you asked. For whatever reason, they place these limitations where you actually can't even spend the full amount on the ad that you want to. And
Hmm.
secondly, everybody's doing that, like you said,
Yeah.
and it does have the potential to just be noise. So I would say if you have that mindset of I'm going to put like I said, then 2,500 is kind of high, but $1,000, $500, whatever it is, into maybe an Easter ad. I would encourage somebody consider just running a year-round ad and just putting aside a weekly budget of, we'll do $50 a week or $100 a week or whatever it may be, just to get the word out about your church, localize it. That's another thing. Make sure you're targeting, just a 5 to 10 mile radius of your church. Don't go too further out from there. Obviously, like you said earlier, if you're in a rural area, that changes things a little bit, but I'm assuming churches that are in, urban or suburban locations. There is value.
Let me make one quick comment about that. Just
Yeah, sure.
every city's unique. I think I can speak to Jacksonville in a major spread out city. People, our radius is much tighter. I wouldn't run. We ran Facebook ads where I wouldn't run them past a mile. Because our area is so densely populated. You would do an hour. You do a 1 mile circle around our church, and you are going to hit hundreds of thousands of homes.
Yeah. And that's Brian, that actually, I'll kind of use that to transition into my next kind of thought as we talk about, just general promotion. That is a good general rule of thumb for all of your marketing promotional efforts. Figure out what that kind of ideal sweet spot is. In your case, you're right. It's a very dense area that you're in there in Jacksonville. So about a mile, maybe two, is going to reach, probably hundreds, if not thousands of people. And when it comes to, wherever you're at, don't waste your marketing efforts. Another thing is mailers. I'm not going to get into talking about mailers. I'm not saying they don't work, but they certainly don't work when you spend way too much money on sending thousands of them to, people in different zip codes that are, 10, because, the average person, I can't remember the exact stat, but I believe the average person doesn't want to drive more than about 10 to 15 minutes to church. And so that's another thing. Keep drive time. That's things you want to keep in mind. Again, if you're a country church, that's the story is completely different. But we're talking about many churches that operate in an urban, suburban setting. In general, keep your marketing efforts just to be, like I said, if it's a mile, that's great. If it's 5 miles, probably doesn't need to, again, if you're in this suburb or urban setting, probably doesn't need to be much beyond 5 miles in most cases.
Okay, that's good. Now, so when we talk about, let's talk about graphic print stuff. Where I came from, Luke, you always had a door knocking campaign. You always had some sort of hanging campaign. Where do you see the value currently with print? So let's say we were going to print 5,000 flyers for an event. Is that even a thing anymore? And if so, what's the best way to use it? Or is it just something you might need to rethink?
Well, we could really stir up some controversy by talking about should we be, knocking on doors and whatever. And I think we've made it pretty clear in the past on where we stand on, an actual door-to-door type of campaign. Mm-hmm. That said, I still see value in having a printed invitation that somebody, not because you need to be knocking doors or canvassing per se, although if you want to use it for that, go for it. Side note, I will say, I think we talked about mailers. I think you'd be better to take your teenagers and send them out to hang door hangers on the doors in your community before you are to spend a bunch of money on postage. So there's that. Now, when it comes though to like those printed handout type invitations, the reason those still have value to me is because they give an actual physical identification to a personal invitation. So if I am, if I'm just a part of your church and I have, just these, and that's the thing, don't make them too big. In fact, I've seen many churches use business card size things, and I think that's great. But, maybe business card or even, 3x5, 4x6, I'd say at the largest, just something that, you can grab. And when you see your neighbor, hey,
like a postcard style front and back.
Little post.
Brochure,
the folded brochure thing. Again, I've seen some do it well. It's just when you get anything that has to be folded, it tends to communicate, this is a lot of information I don't want to take the time to look at. So something quick, front and back, that says on the front, Easter, dates and times, And on the back, maybe just some directions and some small, simple, basic details, your website, stuff like that. But that does give something that, it's kind of like being in the business world, being at some type of networking event. Like, it's good to have a card.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish there was a way, that now we have AirDrop and things like that. So there's a way, but it's still good to have a little card that you can just
So
hand to somebody.
would you recommend, because we haven't done, we still have a tracks. We still have the
Hmm.
tracks people take
Yeah.
with them. But for an event, I'm wondering, like, would you say, like, we printed, we'll say we had a couple hundred people, so we print 1,000, and we say, hey, we're just asking you as a church member to give out 5 or 10,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
just like give them out at the exit of a service, or mail them to your church. I don't know, like,
Yeah,
what's
one of the
the
most effective things I've seen a couple churches do this is, yeah, they order, 1,000, maybe 2,500, depending on the size of their congregation. Then they go through and they have somebody take the time to separate those into about 10-piece bundles, and they
yeah,
just put one in like every other seat of the auditorium, before the worship, before a few Sundays out, before maybe Easter in this case. And then, yeah, like the pastor or whoever stands up and says, hey, you probably noticed that there was a bundle of, invitations in your seat today. We're just asking that, there's only 5 there, there's only 10 there. We're just asking that you give those out, between now and Easter Sunday, because it's there. It's something that people, it's right there in their lap, literally.
I
And
think
then
that's a great idea, and I might even do it. We have some pretty good Easter artwork this year, so yeah,
yeah,
Luke, maybe before I want to talk in a minute about what some optional things you might want to consider for Easter, ramp it up for Easter. Before I do that, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the things you got going on related to graphics and stuff? And I know you got some kind of new things on the docket, but maybe even how you and your business can help maybe some of our listeners related to
mhm.
getting ready for not just Easter, but maybe Christmas or some other event. Tell us what you got going on.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I want to thank many of our audience out there. At this point, I'm helping several pastors and churches from our Church Advance audience. And I love the opportunity, whether it's making a website, doing graphics, or a little bit of both, is usually how it goes. And so I really enjoy that opportunity. Yeah, though, here as we've headed into this, or as we've started the new year, something that has kind of changed on my end is a little bit of a refresh on my brand. So for since I started doing this, the name of my business was Must Increase Media, and essentially I'm streamlining that name to just be called Increase Creative. We're just dropping the must essentially from the name, Increase Creative, just to again streamline the brand, make things a little more simple. Over the years, I've kind of experimented with different product names like Church Media HQ and a few others. It's not to say that that's fully going away, but I'm just kind of consolidating everything under just for sake of branding under this one, kind of common identity of Increase Creative. Again, if you're a church leader, you can still go to churchmediahq.com. It still exists. But really what it is it's a kind of a backdoor into Increase Creative. But yeah, just to kind of summarize where we're at in terms of what we're offering. Yeah, essentially 3 core services: websites, graphic design, and then production. Whether production be video or podcast, that just falls into that production category. And yeah, I will tell you this, Brian, as you know, because we work with you there at River City as well. And if anybody works, we don't want to necessarily just work with you for a one-off situation, although we will, but it's not ideal for us to you just bring my team in to help you with Easter, although that's a great starting place because your church is going to need ongoing creative content, for other events. Like you said, obviously Christmas will be at the end of the year, and there's, fall events and sermon series and all of that. So yeah, we're just we want to help you on an ongoing basis, and so that's why everything that we offer is on a month-to-month subscription. opportunity. But the big change that I'm most excited about is we've worked really hard. I've worked really hard these past several months of streamlining my processes. Quite honestly, harnessing like the power of AI to make things, like I said, a lot more streamlined, a lot more efficient on my end. And because of that, I'm able to offer some pretty affordable pricing. Quite honestly, if you were to look at the competition, I won't name any of them, but it's about half the price, and it's
Mm.
something that we can comfortably do. And I will say, for those in the Church Advance audience, because I do want to help you out. Again, if you allow our team to help you, whether it's with Easter or something, we are offering a $100 off your first month of service, which means that you could get started for your first month for as little as $99. And so, if you're interested in that, I obviously always put my information in the show notes so you can contact us. But whether it's, like I said, website design, podcast, or video production, or some combination of the three, yeah, let us know. We'd be glad to help you with, like I said,
Well,
whether it's Easter
I
or anything.
I can speak up. I mean, Luke and I were partners before the podcast. The podcast is part of the partnership, but our church, River City, you can go to rivercitybaptist.church. You can see Luke's work there. I know I've been to several websites that I know of that have Luke has created and upkept. Obviously, there's people out there that are looking to start up a podcast, even if it's a devotional podcast for your church or whatever. Luke does a great job freeing me up to just get content out. I don't even, I'm so thankful. And I know like the Irwins, our friends, the Irwins have a
Mm-hmm.
musical group. We put them on to Luke, and Luke's produced their podcast and others. So hopefully one of those two or those things will stick, and it's very reasonably priced and a very good product. So it's exciting. And even on an event, maybe that gets you in the door, gets a party started. But I've been to many church websites and thought, boy, y'all need to upgrade. You need a fresh look here. You need something going on there. So yeah, so let's finish up today by just talking about we talked about promoting, we talked about ads, we talked about print, we talked about other ways to get the word out. And I just want to finish by like what could an Easter weekend look like? I want to give you the four different pieces that we have used or are using as Easter outreach or just the Easter experience. And so I'm going to give you four. One is a Good Friday service.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we did that last year, well attended and very well received. And we did the Lord's Supper with it. I preached on the Last Supper, the Last Supper, just a really powerful night. We ended the night with that clip from SM Lockridge. It's Friday, but Sunday's coming. And
Mm-hmm.
man, yeah, it just really had. That was like the exit. It
Yeah.
was the very end. It was a capstone. I think Good Friday services are in good taste. I think they're well. They can be well done. They can be somber. They can be
Mm-hmm.
worshipful. Whether they're outreach focused, I don't particularly remember a ton of people coming outreach, but it was good for our church, and
Yeah.
so I think that's good. And I don't think every element of Easter has to be for the community.
Hmm.
You're automatically going to have more people at your church on Easter, unless you're just some like dead church that nobody would ever go to. But I mean, if
Sure.
you're just a relatively breathing church, you're going to have more people come on Easter than normal. So harness that. The second thing that we've done every year, and we won't ever stop doing it because it's just a hit, is the Easter egg hunt.
Oh,
On our property on Saturday, it's a 2-hour event. There's food, there's snacks, there's face painting. It's like a community event. It's always well received. We've had as many as 600, I believe, at our that event. Not that hard to organize, easy to get volunteers for,
hmm.
and it gives you an open door. And we've had many of those families commit to turning right back around the next morning on Easter Sunday and
Hmm.
just come to church. So that is a piece. I would say if you're going to do minimal, I would do Easter egg hunt on Saturday and enhance your worship experience on Sunday. That would
Hmm.
be like minimal. Do that.
Yeah.
But then, of course, the third element that we're doing this year, which will be a first for us, is a sunrise celebration. And of course, I live in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida. We're doing this at the beach
Oh,
at 6:30 on Easter Sunday morning. We're actually doing the Lord's Supper at that venue.
wow.
We're not doing Good Friday this year. This was a trade off for us.
Gotcha.
We're we did Good Friday. It was great, but we were trying this. It was just an idea the staff had. And I said, hey, I love it. Why don't y'all go for it? And so we're doing scripture readings, worship. We're doing the Lord's Supper, and then we are going to have a prayer time. And then some of the families have already said they're going to plan on going to a brunch or a breakfast, and then head over to church. Some of us will just be heading right back to church to get ready for Sunday. But of course, sunrise on the beach is relatively hard to beat. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we're doing that, and a lot of people like sunrise. In fact, I got a text message while we've been talking from a friend of mine who sent me. I was talking the other day. He sent me pictures of their Easter sunrise service in Virginia, and I mean, he's got just a quick count, probably over 100 people at his. And looks like a beautiful lakeside sunrise service. So
Mm.
I think it's a great idea if you can pull something out. If you're in a warmer place like me, certainly outside could be. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's got to be outside, but like a beach or a waterfront, or you got just a particularly nice scene somewhere near you. Unless you live in Ohio or something where there's nothing nice to see. So there's that, and then of course Easter Sunday. Now,
Mm-hmm.
last year, our church, as you know, has about 275 members on 2 campuses. Our normal days here be 180, 190. But last year, we were looking at the numbers. We increased by 100 people on Easter Sunday.
Wow.
So that means this year, man, we could have like a really good crowd. We just know the guests are coming. So we just pull our best worship songs, our
Mm-hmm.
our most sharp looking screens and lighting, and just all the things that we do that make just enhance the service itself. Is not a ton different. We don't do like a cantata or anything like that.
Cantata. I haven't heard that word in so long. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but yeah.
Well, we don't do like a drama production or anything.
Yeah.
We just do church. But I think giving it your best, and I'm telling you, if I was in a smaller church, I'd even invite some worship help in if you
Yeah.
need to.
Yeah.
Make it a bigger deal.
Yeah.
So that's a typical weekend for us,
Mm-hmm.
and I think even if you did one extra special thing,
Yeah.
do something because it's about momentum here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I've always heard about picking low hanging fruit. The easiest fruit to get is the fruit that's like right there at you, just grab it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's like an Easter weekend. It's low hanging fruit. There's no reason to not go for that.
Yeah.
So, man, I
Absolutely.
hope you guys all have an awesome Easter. Luke, any final word for Easter prep or anything like that you could?
No, you had some good thoughts there, and I'll echo what you said about just enhancing your worship service. And that doesn't mean don't feel, because the mistake that I laughed when you said cantata, because I think the mistake that churches make is they try too hard. There are many who try too hard and they wind up doing something and they do it poorly, which just
Oh,
describes just about every church cantata or drama. So it doesn't mean you got to do something super out of the box, but like you said, do your best worship songs. Maybe find a good video, to show or something like that, to kick off the service or close the service or whatever it may be.
yeah.
Because on the one hand, the other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to lead those that are new to your church to think your church is something it's not. So if like they come in and they see this huge production that, it's like, well, yeah, at the average Sunday, we don't even do anything like that. Well, so it should be an enhancement of what you're already kind of doing. But like you
That's
said, Brian, pulling out your best songs, your best worship, and maybe other things to enhance the service along the way. And then I'll echo what you said too, kind of in relation to Good Friday or a Sunday or a sunrise service. Just make your church accessible on Easter weekend. Broadening your service schedule, whether that be by, like you said, adding a Good Friday, adding a sunrise service, adding a second, morning service, whatever it is, make it more accessible that weekend, because yes, you will very likely have increased attendance, or you should. It's Easter Sunday. You don't want to be in a situation where somebody says, well, I would have come, but I already, because here's the thing about Easter. People don't just go to church. A lot of times, you mentioned, they have brunch, they have other egg hunts with family schedules. So they might say, you know what, I couldn't come to your normal 11 o'clock service because that's when I had brunch scheduled with my family. But had you offered a 9 o'clock, I could have been there. And so make your church as accessible as possible, because Easter is the only Sunday of the year that is organically going to draw people in, because it is simply Easter Sunday. There's no other Sunday like it. Christmas doesn't come close, because Christmas doesn't necessarily fall on a particular Sunday. And so Easter is that opportunity, so take advantage of it. And like I said, if I can help you out at all in the graphic side of it, would love to talk about it. I forgot to mention the new website, increasecreativeco.com. increasecreativeco.com. That's where you can connect with me.
Guys, we appreciate all your support and all your good feedback. God bless you guys. We will see you next time on the Church Advance Podcast.